Okay, let me ask you something. Did John Wick really die at the end of Chapter 4? Or is he still out there, somewhere, hiding in the shadows? Because if you've seen Armas and Ballerina, you already know, something's not adding up. Guys, I've watched Ballerina twice now, and my brain hasn't stopped spinning since. This movie isn't just another action flick, it's a puzzle piece. And not just any piece. It's the one that might completely change the John Wick timeline as we know it. If you're a fan of this universe like I am, buckle up. We're going deep today. So here's the question everyone's been asking, where does Ballerina fit into the John Wick timeline? From the trailers, it looked like we'd be jumping back into the gritty underworld, back to the rules, the gold coins, the high table, and of course, the Ruska Roma. But what I didn't expect was just how closely tied this movie is to Parabellum and how much it tries to stretch across Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. Let's start from the beginning. We meet Eve Macaro, played by Ana de Armas, who is an assassin in training under the Ruska Roma, yes, the same group that raised John. Right away, we're thrown into a very familiar world: ballet, bruises, knives, and pain. You feel it. It's raw. But then something interesting happens. John Wick shows up. Yes, Keanu Reeves himself. This isn't some cameo or flashback. This is John, alive, speaking to Eve before he's sent off to Casablanca, just like in Parabellum. And that's where things get wild. Because we now know that part of Ballerina takes place during the events of Chapter 3. And not just any part, it literally overlaps with the moment John turns in his ticket to the director. Now, let me pause here. If you're a superfan, you remember that scene. John is beaten, bleeding, excommunicado, and he shows up at the Ruska Roma asking for passage. And we thought he left right away. But now, in Ballerina, we learn there's more. He speaks with Eve. He gives her advice. And it's kind of emotional. He tells her, "You already started this life, but you still have a choice." That one line hit me. Because it's not just advice, it's regret. It's John looking at a younger version of himself and wishing he could have done something different. And I think, deep down, he hopes Eve makes the choice he never could. But here's where it gets complicated. About 2 months after that moment, Eve goes after a cult that murdered her father, a dark, twisted organization. The kind of group that even the Ruska Roma fear. And guess who's sent after her? John. Again. Wait, hold up. That doesn't make sense, right? Because at that point in the timeline, John should have already been in Casablanca, meeting Sofia, fighting for his life, crawling back into the high table's favor. There shouldn't be time for him to show up 2 months later and handle Eve. Unless, that part doesn't happen until much later. Maybe that scene is from after Chapter 4. Maybe John survived. Maybe he made some kind of deal to come back into the fold. That could explain why he's working for the Ruska Roma again, maybe as a favor, or maybe as payment for something we haven't seen yet. But if that's true, then Ballerina spans more time than we thought. And it also means something even bigger, that John's story isn't done. And here's the thing that really twists the knife. If the final act of Ballerina is post-Chapter 4, then we've got a major problem. Because John's whole arc in Chapter 4 is about freedom. Sacrifice. He literally dies to escape the high table's grip. That was supposed to be the end. The goodbye. So if he's back in Ballerina, doing missions, getting pulled into underworld politics again, then what was the point of that ending? It undermines everything. Unless, and this is a big maybe, he's helping Eve not because he's part of the system again, but because he believes in her. What if he's trying to protect her from becoming like him? The movie doesn't give us clear answers. And honestly, maybe that's on purpose. Let's talk about Winston and Karen. Their appearance in Ballerina raises even more questions. We see them helping Eve by giving her info on the cult. Sounds normal, right? But think about it. Karen dies in Chapter 4. So that means this scene must take place before that. But when? Because Winston isn't even in a position of power during part of Chapter 4, remember, the hotel is stripped from him. And yet, here, he's casually running things again. Like nothing happened. Are we supposed to believe this happens in that tiny window between Parabellum and Chapter 4 when Winston is still manager and Karen is alive? Or is it just a little creative liberty the movie took for the sake of fan service? I'm not mad about it. But it does get confusing. Because Ballerina wants to do two things at once. It wants to be its own story, and it nails that, by the way, but it also wants to be deeply connected to the John Wick saga. And sometimes those connections feel a little messy. But let me be real with you. Despite all these timeline issues, Ballerina is beautiful. It's brutal. It's emotional. Eve's story is powerful. She's not just a female version of John. She's her own person, with pain, loss, and purpose. Watching her go from trainee to full-on assassin is one of the most satisfying arcs I've seen in a long time. And honestly, I think that's the heart of the movie. It's about choices. About how we carry pain. About legacy. The question isn't just where does Ballerina fit into the timeline? It's what does this story mean for the world John Wick built? We might never get a clear answer. But here's what I think. Ballerina starts during Chapter 3, stretches through it, and possibly overlaps with parts of Chapter 4. Some scenes might even take place after Chapter 4, hinting that John's not dead, or at least not entirely gone. The franchise is leaving that door open, and I think that's intentional. Why? Because this world isn't done growing. We already know there's a 5th John Wick movie in the works. An animated project. More spin-offs. This universe is alive. And with characters like Reeves stepping in, the torch is clearly being passed. Let me tell you something else I noticed. Reeves' dance scenes are more than just visual art. They're emotional storytelling. Every movement, every step, it's like she's expressing the trauma she can't speak out loud. That kind of expression, that kind of pain, it's exactly what made us connect with John in the first place. He was never just an assassin. He was a man who lost everything and used violence as a language of grief. Reeves on that same path. But maybe she can break the cycle. Maybe she's the future this world needs. And think about the cinematography. The cold blues. The crimson reds. The shadows. It all feels like it's breathing from the same universe but also pushing toward something new. Something even more artistic. Almost poetic. I think that's the direction the franchise is moving toward, a fusion of raw action and deep emotion. Let's not forget the villains either. The Cult Eve fights? Absolutely chilling. The Chancellor, played by Gabriel Byrne, is terrifying in a quiet, eerie way. He's not just another bad guy with a gun. He's the embodiment of manipulation, control, and generational trauma. And that makes him way more dangerous. It also makes Eve's triumph feel more personal. More human. By the time we reach the end of Ballerina, we're not asking whether Eve is ready to be an assassin. We're asking whether she still wants to be one. And that's powerful. So what's next? Will Eve be in John Wick Chapter 5? Will we see her take center stage while John stays in the shadows? Could she be the one to finally destroy the High Table? I don't know. But I'm all in. And if you're still with me right now, thank you. This community we've built, it's more than just people who like cool fight scenes. We're here for meaning. For characters. For connection. So let's keep this going. Comment your favorite scene from Ballerina. Tell me how you think it connects to the Wick timeline. Drop your theories. Your questions. Your hot takes. And if you haven't already, hit that like button. Subscribe for more deep dives, breakdowns, and emotional storytelling. Share this with your friends who live and breathe cinema. We're not just reacting. We're feeling these stories together. Because that's what this channel is all about. And I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp.